And he said that this is the way by which ASEAN would project itself as a respectable and reliable organization. We will notice that Malaysia, like the Philippines, is also involved in disputes over maritime domain in the South China Sea. And later on, in extemporaneous remarks following his prepared statement, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono of Indonesia, who was congratulated by many of his fellow heads of state and government as he is completing his two terms of office as Indonesian president. President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono also emphasized the need for ASEAN solidarity, and he called on the members of ASEAN to show moral courage. And he spoke after the president of Vietnam also called on ASEAN solidarity for following the rule of law. We are aware that Vietnam is contesting certain actions taken against it in the South China Sea.
Sir, did the President of Indonesia also say something about gunboat diplomacy?
I heard him say that there should be no room for the use of gunboat diplomacy because, in fact, what should be promoted are peaceful means of settling disputes by following the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea and the ASEAN Declaration on the Code of Conduct.
Thank you very much.
Sir, other countries po na nagbigay pa ng interest dito sa issue aside from Indonesia and Malaysia?
In the plenary session, I heard the Prime Minister of Malaysia and the President of Indonesia and the President of Vietnam speak with emphasis on the need for supporting these principles. The other heads of state may have touched on it in a more general way. But I think there were further discussions during the retreat, except that we are not aware yet of what transpired because only the heads of state and government and their foreign ministers were present during the retreat.
Sorry, sir, I was not here earlier, but if I may have you repeat yourself, what did President Aquino actually say to the rest of the ASEAN leaders?
Well, his speech covered the items in the agenda, including the movement towards the ASEAN community or ASEAN integration, also the issues on women and children and on gender mainstreaming. He thanked the ASEAN for their support for the signing of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, and particularly Malaysia for being the country facilitator. He also thanked the countries that supported the Philippines during the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan and continued to give support to the country in the rehabilitation period.
Specifically on the South China Sea, what was the message that he wanted to impress upon the leaders?
He did not make any specific statement on the South China Sea in his intervention during the plenary, but he said after he read his statement that he was going to say something during the retreat. I was not present during the retreat.
Does he believe that ASEAN can do more if China does not want to move on its position?
President Aquino has always been a consistent promoter and advocate of the principle that countries should settle their disputes using a rules-based approach and in the context of ASEAN following the declaration of the Code of Conduct of parties in the South China Sea.
And you mentioned earlier, what did the Vietnamese Prime Minister say?
I heard the President of Vietnam or the Vietnamese Prime Minister talk about the situation in the South China Sea involving Vietnam and China, and he called also for ASEAN solidarity in supporting the principles of the rule of law.
But when it comes to actions, is there anything that ASEAN can do aside from just issuing statements?
But I think we should wait for the declaration of the heads of state and government. And I was pointing out earlier that the ASEAN foreign ministers already issued their own statement earlier.
But it appears that China is saying that this is not an ASEAN issue. China, has indicated that this is a squarely bilateral or, individual countries' issues.
Well, if that is the position of China, then the countries of ASEAN are also making their own statement on that matter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.